This video is exactly what it says on the label. There are lots of sports watches that get all the attention and hype, but there are still many Rolex models out there that cost a fraction of what a Daytona will cost you, and that you might enjoy wearing even more because of how it'll make you feel you got a steal. Here are 5 of them that cost less than $8,000 today, and given how the market has declined, are now more affordable than they were as recently as 2 years ago, and in many cases as much as 3 years ago. All the data in this video comes from WatchCharts.com, the world's most powerful watch market research platform. Visit our website to understand high-level watch market trends, get up-to-date pricing on over 25,000 watches, and track the value of your collection. Also, if you're interested in buying and selling among fellow collectors, then we invite you to visit the WatchCharts marketplace at marketplace.watchcharts.com. We'll start the list with a model from the collection that, of all of the other collections that we're going to feature, is probably the one that still is most hype adjacent. But the reference 16570 Explorer 2 was in production from 1989 to 2011. It has a very wearable 40 millimeters case, which has now been upsized in the latest version of this watch, and today can be had for $7,400 or thereabouts, and 2 years ago was closer to touching the $10,000 mark. This is a great sports watch option with the GMT function, and here's a listing that we found from a reputable seller on Reddit who is selling this watch for $7,650, and it comes in a complete set of box and papers from the year 2000, which is sort of in the middle of the production run for this watch. It's not the most recent one you could buy, but given that it does come with an RSC card, that means the Rolex Service Center has serviced this particular watch. It is likely to be in very good condition. The next one is probably my personal favorite on this list, and I think on paper sounds like the watch that a lot of people would want Rolex to make, which is that it is 39 millimeter case size, that it features no date window, that it's a sports type sort of case and general look and feel because it doesn't have the fluted bezel, and that it features a beautiful white dial. And it's relatively modern. And also, depending on which dial color you're going for within this reference, that it is relatively rare. So the reference 114300 Oyster Perpetual in 39 millimeters was available from 2015 to 2020, and today can be had for $7,300 after having been close to $9,000 2 years ago. But the white dial version shown here in the image, and then an accompanying black dial version, those 2 dial variants, along with 3 others, but those 2 specifically, were only made from 2018 to 2020, which, as far as modern Rolex goes, is definitely on the rarer side. And so there's an accompanying premium for one of those dial variants if you choose to go for one. Nevertheless, here's one for a white dial OP39, which is listed for just under $8,000 from a very reputable seller on eBay. If you wanted one of the other dial variants in this watch, they would probably, for comparable condition, cost even less than this one does. The Air King reference 116900 is probably the watch of the ones that we featured on this list that saw the most hype, and that's visible in the general spike and then decline in prices that you can see on the price history chart for this watch. It was produced from 2016 to 2022 when it was superseded by the 126900. For my personal preference, I actually like this one more because for the 5 o'clock marker, it just says 5 as opposed to the 126900, which says 05. That 0 just feels superfluous, even if it pretends to make the dial look a little bit more balanced. This is also missing lume on the 369, but that's something that you could take or leave, given that there is still a triangle at the 12 o'clock position, and then the hands are loomed. So you shouldn't really have trouble sort of orienting yourself when looking at this watch in the dark if the hands are glowing. It also comes in the 40 millimeter case, and today can be had for $7,100 in terms of market price, and 2 years ago was still above $10,000. Here's one listing, again, from Rolex forums, from a reputable seller who is selling this watch for just under $7,100 and comes as a full set from 2019, which again sort of places it in the middle of the production run for this particular reference from the Air King collection. This next one is, remarkably enough, a current production Rolex sports model watch, the iconic 36 millimeter current implementation, the reference 124270, which has been in production since 2021 and retails for $7,350 and today has a market price of $7,500. So just a shade above its retail price. 2 years ago, this watch was at $9,800 in terms of market price, and 3 years ago was actually well above $11,000. But when you get back 3 years ago, that's basically just the summer after it was launched. And as we know, any Rolex watch that experiences a lot of hype, like this one certainly did in the summer of 2021, not just because of market conditions, but also because the Explorer had been downsized back from 39 millimeters, which is what it used to be, to the 36 millimeter version we have in front of us today. There was a lot of hype and interest around this watch. And so, of course, as availability is limited when it's first announced and released, people are willing to pay a higher premium. And then, of course, as market conditions changed, the price for this watch also started to decline. And here's a listing for a little under $8,000 from a reputable seller on Rolex forums with box and papers in excellent condition. If the Rolex Explorer look is really the one that you want to go for, though, this 124270 is not the only option you have. In fact, you can get Rolex Explorers in a few different sizes and generations, depending on what specific criteria you want for your ideal Explorer. The 114270, the 14270, and the 214270 all trade below $8,000. We'll round out the list with a watch that certainly to me is a bit of an oddball, that Rolex was still making something like this as recently as 2011. This is the reference 116264 Datejust Turn-o-Graph, and it was made from 2004 to 2011. It's a 36 millimeter Datejust cased watch, which has a white gold bezel, but the bezel isn't just purely fluted. It has 5-minute markings and then the numeral markings for the 10-minute intervals on a bidirectionally rotating bezel that you could use to time intervals of up to 60 minutes on a watch that is not, let's say, a Submariner, which also has a 60-minute timing bezel. This one trades for around $7,200, and 2 years ago was trading a little bit above at $8,300. As you can see, because it's more of an oddball relative to some of the more hyped sports watches, and that it's been discontinued for longer, what you see is that the market price for this watch over the last 3 years didn't see as much volatility as some of the other watches on this list did. So in that sense, its market price has been a bit more stable. Here's a listing for $7,300 from, again, a reputable seller on eBay, which comes with the white dial. But of course, in addition to the bezel, this reference also features the strikingly red second hand as well as the red date wheel, which also make this stand out against your standard sort of Rolex Datejust 36 millimeter that you may see available and that you may be interested in buying. Hopefully what this exercise shows you is that there is still plenty of value to be had out there with the Rolex name on the dial for under $8,000, and that is not just something that you have to sort of settle for in terms of a compromise on what the product is to be able to get something with that name on your wrist. These are certainly, to my eye, in some cases, highly desirable watches, ones that if I were in the market for a Rolex, I would seriously consider. And so for me personally, if I had to pick one off of this list, I would probably pick the OP39 with a white dial. But let us know which ones you would like instead in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.